So here I am again doing the rep grind, and yeah, it's a very long rep grind. If anyone who plays World of Warcraft knows about it, they'll probably figure out that I'm doing the insane title and grinding goblin rep. Um, I mentioned in my last video that there was a point in my life that I was on drugs. Now, I may have mentioned this before, and I may have even gone into it a little bit, and I apologize if I have. I've certainly not made a video about it. Um, but I actually got a chance to talk with my boyfriend's mother, and if you watch my videos regularly, then you know that I have a boyfriend now. But I got a chance to talk to his mother, and the issue involved here was that my boyfriend has chronic headaches, not migraines. I've seen my brother's boyfriend and my stepmother both have chronic migraines in their families. And I know exactly what it looks like. I know how it is. He doesn't have chronic migraines. He has had one or two migraines since I've known him, but he does have the occasional headache. His mother had taken him to a neurologist, and the neurologist prescribed him Zoloft. Now, I recognized the name immediately. My father is a pharmacist. I am studying pharmacy, and I myself have had a terrifying experience on prescription drugs. So, to me, hearing this really hit close to home, close to my heart. And at the time, my boyfriend was telling me that his mother was very leery about giving him the Zoloft, but still had the prescription filled, or was trying to. I didn't know anything about that until about a week after the fact, when his mother brought home the little prescription bag from the pharmacy with the Zoloft in it. At that point, I told him, she's brought it home. I need to talk with her now. And I realized that maybe I was overstepping the boundary as his boyfriend. Maybe I was, but I kind of consider myself to be somewhat, as in references, like a semi-professional opinion at this point. Not because, as I said, I've been exposed to this sort of thing. I've had my own experiences with it, and I know a fair amount about Zoloft. I did research on it myself, because as I said, this is my boyfriend. This is someone very important to me. And I sat down with his mom, and I talked to her about my concerns about it, about how much I disapproved of it. Because you see, Zoloft is used to treat social phobias, PTSD, I believe it's major depression as well. There's a issue that only occurs in women. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what it is, but it's used to treat for that. Again, we didn't have to worry about that. But there's a high-level OCD. High-level OCD. But these major mental disorders. Now, one of my roommates, who served 2 tours in Iraq as part of the National Guard, came back with social phobias and PTSD, and he takes Zoloft, and I have no problem with that. He has 2 of the things that Zoloft directly treats. But you see, the neurologist prescribed Zoloft with the intention that it would help my boyfriend's vascular headaches, was the diagnosis. Vascular headaches. The treatment of vascular headaches by Zoloft is off-label. The studies that say that Zoloft treats vascular headaches are non-existent. In the studies where vascular headaches are referenced, it is as a side effect. What it effectively amounts to is that people who suffer from the things that Zoloft helps were suffering vascular headaches because in these sorts of situations that cause OCD, PTSD, social phobias, that will give you a headache. So they noticed that when it helped with these conditions, there was a correlation that the vascular headaches would begin to vanish as well because these these mental issues were being taken care of. There was no causational study. There was only correlational, which if you look at biology, you know. Biology and psychology, you would know this sort of thing. Of course, at that point, I also realized that more than likely this neurologist, whoever the hell he was probably getting paid off by the people for Zoloft to hawk the Zoloft in any way he possibly could. Looking at Zoloft, there's a lot of side effects. There's a list of side effects that are occurrent in more than 10% of people who take it. And, you know, whatever Pepto-Bismol helps with, you get that. Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea, all of that side effects in over 10% of the people who take Zoloft. 1 to 10%, there's a whole list of sexual disorders that you can be stricken with. And lower than 1%, it gets even worse. So there's an entire slew of things that can go wrong with Zoloft, including making you completely depressed and having suicidal thoughts. You know, if something's meant to treat depression, it shouldn't make you more depressed. Kind of defeats the purpose. Point being, though, is that I really did not feel comfortable, did not feel safe, did not want him to take Zoloft. Because of these reasons, because of the high side effect, because it's being used to treat something that it's not even on label for. It's an off-label use. Now, sometimes that's perfectly fine. But in times like this, he has nothing. He has no mental issues at all. He doesn't have any of this. The Zoloft would do nothing for him, more than likely. Nothing more than get this neurologist a little bit more money out of the Zoloft company for hawking it, and take money out of his family's pockets for it, because it's a fairly expensive drug. Now I've mentioned research, and I've mentioned the semi-professional side of what I know and what I've found out from my father from consulting about this. But I'm going to tell you my story, and I'm going to give you the condensed version of it. I grew up in the 90s, which if you grew up in the 90s or around in the 90s and had kids, then you remember that there was the whole pandemic of ADD and ADHD. That was the hot disorder. If your kid was a misbehavior, oh, he's got ADD, don't worry about it, just pop him full of these pills, he'll be fine. But that's the time I grew up in. When I was 5, I was diagnosed with ADHD and put on Ritalin, which we now know the side effects of which are terrifying. But I was put on Ritalin. I was on 25 milligrams twice a day. I was 5 years old. I was on Ritalin up through 3rd grade. Then I was on Concerta up through 6th grade. And then I was put on Strattera. And Strattera fucked my stomach up something fierce. I began to have morning sickness 5 and 6 mornings a week. I felt like throwing up every single morning. I was downing Gaviscon, Pepto-Bismol, Tums, whatever you could think of that would soothe that sort of thing in the morning, just so I could make it through the day. I even did, in fact, throw up on multiple occasions. And that didn't happen at all until after I started taking the Strera. And I finally got off of the stuff in 10th grade when I went to live with my mother full time. I was 15, and I'd gone to live with her. So for 10 years I was on assorted ADHD medications. Now, of those 10 years, I remember very little, because it appears that one of the side effects that I went through was almost complete memory loss of those 10 years. So I'm effectively missing about half of my life, probably a bit more, effectively so. Being on that medication socially retarded me. And I use retarded in the sense that it slowed it down. When I came out of this drug-induced stupor, I had the mentality of probably about a 10-year-old. And I had to learn real quick what was going on around me. I was still fucking intelligent. I was. But I had the mentality of a 10-year-old. So I had to cram about 10 years of social development into a summer. And it wasn't pleasant. It was not pleasant at all. I could even, if I looked for them, I could probably find the progress reports that my teacher sent out that basically have it on there that I was like a zombie in the classroom. Outside of actual official paper records. I do know from talking with some of my old teachers that they thought that they had Night of the Living Dead in their classroom because I would sit there quietly, not even moving. It was like I was dead. But then I would move. It was very much like having a zombie in the classroom. At the end of it, I can't say that I survived completely sane. I can't say that I will ever be normal when it comes to my mind. Because the ADHD meds did in fact fracture my mind. It was very much like stomping on a creation of Legos, an original creation, stomping on it, breaking it up into millions of the individual blocks, and then trying to put it back together. Whatever I went into this with was not what I came out with. It is very distorted, very strange, but it works. Somehow it works. And I just accept that, and I deal with that. And I'm 22 now, 23 in April, and if there's anything I've learned from taking psychology courses, you don't grow out of a mental disorder. You don't. You learn how to cope with it. You don't grow out of it. If there's anything I've learned growing up into an actual adult, biologically, physically, I've grown out of ADHD, which means I never had it in the first place. A number of the people, my peer group, who I went to school with, who were diagnosed with ADHD, have grown out of it. They never had it, but they were still treated for it. The simple fact of the matter is, in the 90s, the big hot disorder for children was ADD and ADHD. Most of us didn't have it. It's still an issue. There are still people who have ADD and ADHD, and I'm not lessening them. But we were misdiagnosed. We were diagnosed for the sake of lining psychiatrists' pockets with money. That's the simple fact of the matter. We were. And now you're starting to see bipolar and depression. These are the two big ones for this millennium. Justin Bieber has depression. Whoa. What the hell does he have to be depressed about? Honestly. If anyone's depressed, it's me. It's my brother, who has PTSD, who got his knee and his shoulder shot out. It's my roommate, Bob, who served 2 tours and can't be in a room with more than 5 people without freaking out. We have reasons to be depressed. Justin Bieber, you don't. You don't have depression. You're a punk-ass little kid who wants sympathy. That's all. Because we can make everything better with a little pill that changes the chemistry of your brain. That's what it all amounts to. And that's me, signing off. Don't do legal drugs. They're usually bad.